Welcome or welcome back. I'm Cassie and this is Wicked World. Just as a reminder, YouTube has been unsubscribing people from the channel, so if you've previously subscribed, just double check to make sure that you still are. And if you haven't yet, then what are you waiting for? Now the story I have for you today is about a little girl who was not only viciously killed, but prior to that was forced to live in absolute squalor, even though child services was involved with her life. This is the story of October Perez. October Ann Perez, also lovingly called Toby, was born on January 10, 2009, to her mother, Christy Perez, in Great Falls, Montana. The little girl loved making cookies with her grandmother as well as playing in the snow. She also enjoyed riding her tricycle, playing with her grandmother's dog, and October was just obsessed with trying on and walking around in other people's boots and shoes. When October was born, her mother Christy was married to a man named Freddie Perez, and at first he thought that he was the little girl's father. However, it would soon be discovered that he was not. Instead, a man named Michael Arndt was October's biological father, and at the time of her birth, he was actually stationed overseas in Afghanistan. Soon after Freddie Perez found out that Christy had been cheating on him, they went their separate ways. And it wouldn't be long after that until Christy began to date a new man named David Hyslop. Now, while October's biological father, Michael, was stationed overseas, his visitation time with his daughter went to his mother, whose name was April Hall. Though once Michael was actually home on leave one time, he met Christy's new boyfriend, David, and was not a fan of him. He had not gotten a good impression at all and did not want his daughter to be near the man. So following that, he hired a lawyer and began to try to gain full custody of October. Christy had moved in with her new boyfriend, David, and almost immediately after, April began to grow concerned about her granddaughter, October. This was after the little girl started showing up at her house with bruises, cuts, and scrapes all over. And she would often show up dirty. Additionally, October's older brother told the grandmother that Christy and the new boyfriend David had been using drugs inside the home. So April contacted Child Protective Services and let them know about her concerns. They then sent a caseworker over to the home where October lived to check on things. This caseworker's name was Rachel Zinn. The thing is, as soon as the state started their investigation, this made Christy very angry, and she stopped letting October see her grandmother April. In February of 2011, Christy would finally cave and let April begin to see October again. Though she was still angry, so she wanted April to pick October up from her mother's house instead of directly from Christy. When April went to pick up her granddaughter this time, October was crying and she wouldn't stop. Her crying even got worse when she went to put on her jacket and when she went to put the little girl into her car seat. So April asked Christy's mother what had happened to October, because even though she was 2 years old, she had been so badly neglected that she had no words of her own yet. When Christy's mother confronted her and asked her why October was crying nonstop, Christy claimed she hadn't noticed and she had no idea. So April decided that she needed to bring October to the emergency room because this was not normal crying and it wouldn't stop. But Christy didn't want that to happen, so she dragged her feet. But eventually, she would end up giving in and going to the hospital with October and April. Good thing, too, because they ended up finding out that October had a broken arm, and Child Protection Services was again notified. Once Child Services did get involved, October's grandmother, April, was given emergency custody of her for 5 days, and was told to bring her to the pediatrician for a follow-up the next day. It would be during that appointment that doctors would discover that October's other arm had actually previously been broken and never treated. Then just days after this doctor's visit, April would receive a phone call from Child Services telling her that there was not enough information to keep October away from her mother, Christy, and April needed to return her immediately. And this is even though the doctor who had checked on October's injuries had said that they were non-accidental. It was only months later, in April of 2011, that April was allowed to see her granddaughter, October, once again. This time, she met up with Christy and October for a lunch date, and she was shocked by her granddaughter's condition. The 2-year-old was filthy, reeked of marijuana, was missing a tooth, and had bald spots. Like her hair had been pulled out, not shaved. Christy would insist that her daughter had a medical condition that resulted in her hair falling out. Though later, October would be taken to her primary care doctor for blood work, and that was proven to not be true. April would again contact Child Protective Services because she knew that these injuries were not just an accident. But the caseworker Rachel Zinn, whom she spoke to on the phone, was rude and dismissive. So April then went down to the Child Services building in person to try to meet with Rachel and tell her why she was so worried about October. But this proved to do nothing other than make October's mother, Christy, punish April yet again and take away her visits. This didn't last very long, however, and Christy would allow October's grandmother, April, to take them out for dinner. Unbeknownst to the grandmother, it would be the very last time that she would see October alive. In the days after their dinner meetup, April tried to set up a parenting plan with Christy, but Christy didn't want anything in writing as far as October's custody went. Which was likely because April had been giving Christy money for child support in cash. And Christy was receiving state assistance for October. So if anything was made legal, that would cut into the amount of money that she received. At the same time, April was trying to set up a dentist appointment because she was determined to prove that October's tooth had not just fallen out on its own, but rather was a result of abuse. She figured if she could get this appointment made, she would be able to prove to Child Services that something needed to be done to remove October from her mother's care. However, Christy was fighting this appointment being made. Then, on June 3rd, April would receive a phone call from Christy's estranged husband, October Perez, whom Christy shared a son with. Freddie told April that he received a letter from Christy, and in it there had been pictures of October. He noticed that the little girl was now missing 3 teeth. And keep in mind, she's only 2 years old. Normally, children don't start losing their teeth until they're at least 5 or 6. These photos of October would be directly sent to her caseworker, Rachel Zinn. Additionally, October Perez, along with April, October's biological father, Michael, and other relatives expressed their concerns to the caseworker. But these concerns were again ignored, and October's case was closed out shortly thereafter. The thing is, had her caseworker Rachel just gone out to the home where October was living with her mother Christy and Christy's boyfriend, she would have seen just how filthy it was. Or maybe she did, and she just didn't care. Because she supposedly was going out to the home for a few hours each week. Not to mention, inside the small one-bedroom home located at 1305 4th Ave South, lived October, her older brother, her mother Christy, her mother's boyfriend David, David's brother Kendall, and Kendall's girlfriend Janetta, all in a one-bedroom house. It's also said that David had 2 children of his own whom he had lost custody of previously due to drug charges. Another thing that Child Services should have known about. Then, on June 23, 2011, April received a phone call saying that October had fallen down and hit her head twice, either in the basement or on the sidewalk. Christy and her boyfriend could not keep their story straight. Regardless, 2-year-old October was now in the emergency room fighting for her life. Even though the girl's injuries had been played down, when Christy told April about them, April would receive a second phone call just a little while later, telling her that October was likely not going to make it. October had originally been brought to Great Falls Hospital, but upon her arrival there, she had to be life-flighted to Primary Children's Medical Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. The little girl had a broken back. She clearly had not just fallen down and hit her head, as claimed. A scan would also reveal that she had broken her back a second time, just days or weeks prior, and it had gone untreated. Doctors additionally found a large hematoma on the side of her head, and many of her toes were also broken. Now, October's father, Michael, had immediately gotten onto a plane and flown back home when he heard that his daughter was so badly injured. Sadly, he would not make it home in time before she passed away. When police went out to the home where October had been living with her mother along with all the other adults, they would find absolutely deplorable living conditions. This included maggots in the refrigerator, dirty diapers on the floor, and trash strewn all about. A floor drain in the basement that October slept near had even been used as a urinal. And, as I said, according to her caseworker Rachel Zinn, she had gone out to this home each week during the time that October's arm was broken. The thing is, even though there had been 4 adults inside the home, none of them seemed to know what had happened to October. Eventually, David's brother Kendall would speak up, and he told police that he had heard David in the basement shouting at October to go to bed. Then he heard 3 loud bangs coming from the basement where the children slept. It wasn't a redone basement either. It was a creepy, dark, dirty, cluttered basement. When Kendall asked his brother about the noises that he heard, David just told him that he had hit his head a few times in the laundry room. So authorities, of course, wanted to speak with David as well. And he would tell them that he believed October's injuries had occurred due to some bad hot dogs, which clearly makes 0 sense. After police revealed more and more injuries that had been found on the little girl's body, David's story began to change. Eventually, he told detectives that he had dropped October on the concrete floor in the basement. However, he also said it was just an accident. David then claimed that after he had done this, accidentally, he knew that he had done something bad, because October didn't cry at all, but rather started to have a seizure. Instead of getting her any type of help, though, David just decided to go back upstairs. Once Christy got back home from her job a little while later, she would hear her daughter down in the basement whimpering. But David told her not to worry about it. The little girl was just having a bad dream. So instead of checking on the toddler, Christy decided just to leave the house with David to go get some food. Then upon their arrival back home, Christy and David had sex, just feet away from where October was laying dying. Christy would also admit to rubbing her daughter's back after this. And when she said the little girl had abnormal posturing, which is indicative of a head injury. And apparently, Christy was currently taking courses to be an EMT, so she knew what this meant, but still didn't get any help. Eventually, they would end up calling emergency services, but not until around 6 hours after October had originally received her injury. Now, not only had Christy failed to get her daughter medical attention that day, but she also hadn't got her any help in the days prior when she had another spinal fracture that was likely causing her a great deal of pain. Christy had also been clearly compliant in the abuse and neglect of her daughter. But for some reason, David would be the only one who was charged with October's murder. He would end up going to trial in 2012, and he was found guilty, for which he was sentenced to life behind bars. And October's caseworker, Rachel Zinn, the one who claimed to be going out to the house at least once a week, but in reality had just been completely ignoring October's family's concerns, stopped working for child services shortly thereafter. Little October's organs were donated following her death, making her the reason that other children were able to continue living their lives. A nonprofit called Toby's House was also started in October's memory by her family, and the organization provides immediate refuge and safety to children in need. Well, thank you for listening to October's story today. David is an absolute monster, and I'm glad that he's serving life behind bars. But I'm also very bothered by the fact that neither October's mother, Christy, or her caseworker, Rachel Zinn, faced any sort of punishment for what they allowed to happen to the toddler for months on end. October did not have to be subjected to that filthy house and abuse at the hands of her mother's boyfriend, David. She had a loving grandmother who wanted her, like so many stories we've heard before. But child services, again, just looked the other way and allowed her to stay in a home where she would end up losing her life. So if you like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. And turn on those notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least twice every week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.